Hello bitches, this is the third and final video in the 3-part mini-series I am working on, going over the nerd shit power scaling of one of gaming's most important video game characters, the Doomslayer, or Doom Guy. My first video went over the scaling of classic Doom and Doom Guy's time in the Arena Eternal, showing that even early on, before his career, before ever becoming the Slayer, Doom Guy was already a universal to multiversal threat. The second video went over his time in Arch de Nor and his time in Doom 2016 and Quake Champions. Continuing the trend of universal to multiversal scaling. Now, this video will be going over the peak of the Slayer scaling, Doom Eternal to the Ancient Gods. I only have one thing to explain before I get to the scaling. I'll try to make it brief because I have a lot of shit to cover with this video. In some of the scans I'll be using here and in my Doomslayer profile, I use the Book of Seraphs Codex. What makes that peculiar is that the scans say the father when I'm talking about Davoth. Allow me to explain it. The Book of Seraphs can still be used as it contains information that can give us more cohesive explanation of the story of Doom, give us more context on events and whatnot. It still has truth to it. The only thing that is really wrong about it is the positions of the father and Davoth are swapped as an attempt to falsely record history by the makers. In the Book of Seraphs, it is said that the father was the creator deity of the verse, while Davoth was just a servant that rebelled against him, when in actuality it is the other way around. The majority of the book doesn't create any inconsistencies in the story, so it can still be used, and the problem of the relationship between Davoth and the father can be fixed with a simple name swap. With that said, here is a massive steamy load of Doom power scaling dripping down your attractive face and chest. Naturally, if you've been watching the series now at this point, the Doomslayer is stronger than before, given he has killed thousands upon thousands of demons. Not only that, but in between the events of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, Doomslayer modified and upgraded the prayer suit, increasing his mobility and destructive capability. Also at this point, not only is the Doomslayer given the title of dominant life form of the universe, but is so powerful that he indirectly warps reality itself. This is detailed in the Art of Doom Eternal, specifically at the beginning of Chapter 5, Demon vs. Slayer. It is detailed to us that the surroundings of the Slayer literally warps into an arena suited for him before he even enters it. This is why we see things like monkey bars, armor shards, ammo, floating islands, and whatnot in-game, believe it or not. This reality bending effect also explains another thing that would otherwise be a game mechanic: player customization. The Slayer literally manipulates reality passively just to make himself look cool. So obviously he is really strong, but how strong is this new Slayer? To be honest, most of the bosses in Doom Eternal don't provide any new scaling. Really is the only two that really give us anything are the last two bosses, the Khan Maykr and the Icon of Sin. To be further honest, I don't really use the Khan Maykr stuff anymore. Just like the Spire Mastermind space-time argument from the first video. But I'm sharing it here because there might still be people who want to use it and could probably argue in favor of it. With that said, let's get into the Khan Maykr stuff. So before you leave Urdak, you fight and kill the Khan Maykr, coming out unscathed like every other foe. Because the Doomslayer is just that much of a Chad. Well, on the Khan Maykr deathbed, she unleashed her life sphere, which exploded, causing the sky to turn red, and shortly after, everything starts shaking like an earthquake is happening. With this, people have argued that the Khan Maykr shook all over Urdak. Assuming this to be the case, this would be another clear universal plus feat that the Slayer scales to, because Urdak is made clear to be a higher dimensional realm. At the very beginning of Doom Eternal, Urdak is straight up called a higher dimension. In the codex entry for Urdak in the story of the Makers, it is said to be fixed beyond the boundaries of the universe. In the story of the Sentinels, it is described as lands beyond the mortal plane. In the art of Doom Eternal, it is described as a hub of transcendent technology. Lastly, Samur Maykr says that Urdak is a realm that is utterly inaccessible to lower beings like humans and Sentinels, with none of them having ever set foot in Urdak at all. This is actually a pretty big deal because the Sentinels at their peak were able to create machinery that would give them access to all of space and time, at least on the 3D level, thanks to Arch Energy. So even with technology that gives them free reign over time and space, Urdak is still unreachable to them. At first, I thought the inaccessible statement wasn't referring to the dimensionality of Urdak, rather the protective seal / barrier the Father created around Urdak to keep the demons out, but this isn't the case. There isn't anything to suggest that the barrier keeps everyone out. If anything, it more so seems specific to keeping the demons out, which makes sense since one of their main traits is being able to travel to other dimensions unlike other races. This is shown to be the case in Necroval, which literally has a portal that Doomguy uses to travel from Hell to Urdak, and despite that, the demons still can't get through until the Icon of Sin is awakened, breaking that seal. So this inaccessible statement is still referring to Urdak's dimensionality, meaning looking at this feat at face value, the Khan Maykr shook in higher dimensional realm. This is all fine dandy, but there is a caveat that could throw all of this off. It can be easily argued that the Khan Maykr didn't shake Urdak here. As said before, the shaking only happens sometime after the sphere explodes, but it starts happening just as the voice in the background starts yelling. So it is possible that this mysterious voice was the thing shaking Urdak, not the Khan Maker's life sphere. While it isn't necessary to know what this mysterious voice is, I'll leave a link in the description to my Doom Notes blog, specifically on a section that goes over the mysterious voice and what it could or not be. Also, we don't really know much of how much of Urdak was shook here, assuming this is the life sphere's doing still. Again, only leaving this here for people that still want to use it. Also, before moving on to the Icon of Sin, I would like to talk more about Urdak. There are a lot of misconceptions surrounding Urdak and its place in Doom's cosmology. Given this Khan Maykr argument relates to it and the scaling of Hell, which I'll go over later on, I feel the need to debunk them, or at least give my 2 cents on the matter. Firstly, some people have argued for Urdak to be 60, given it is referred to as the 6th dimension on a screen in the Ancient Gods Part 1. This doesn't necessarily mean that Urdak is 6th dimensional. This is because it is actually possible that in Doom, a timeline contains several universes inside it. This is implied in the Divinity Machine Codex entry, which details the Slayer's existence, along with him destroying the Maker race, as constants across all timelines. In order for this to be possible, every timeline must have an Earth dimension, the universe where humans are from, and an Urdak. So this 6th dimension statement isn't really saying that Urdak is 60 or the 6th spatial dimension. Rather, it is saying that it is the 6th universe out of a collection of universes. Secondly, there also seems to be a belief that Urdak scales above Hell or is comparable in existence to Hell. This mainly comes from the statement, through advanced technology, Urdak exists in an anchor state that essentially inverts their position in relation to Hell, forming a lower and higher reality relationship between the two. Neither of these arguments are true. Not only does the statement not make it clear whether or not Urdak is the higher reality here, but there is more evidence for Hell to be this higher reality, a realm beyond Urdak, with it being said to be a superior realm and it existing beyond the multiverse when Urdak is still bound to it in its timelines, as I just described. The statement isn't even comparing the two in dimensionality, it is just saying that they are both planes of existence that exist beyond the multiverse. The universe, sorry. Urdak being a realm above Hell makes even less sense if you take in the fact that the Father himself, the primeval of Urdak, and the God of the Makers thought that Hell could one day shatter Urdak. If you know the difference between two spatial dimensions, you know how ridiculous this would be if Hell was lower dimensional to it. Lastly, there's also the argument that this lower and higher reality connection isn't referring to dimensionality in the first place, rather in the sense that Hell is literally placed underneath Urdak, like how Hell is typically portrayed in religion and other fictional works. This is backed up in game with the fact that when Doomguy had to travel from Hell to Urdak, he had to go upwards. Too long didn't read. Urdak isn't 60 or a realm above or even comparable to Hell. It is just another fourth dimensional realm that exists in the bounds of the multiverse. With that out of the way, let's talk about the literal goat of Doom Eternal, the icon of sin. At the actual end of Doom Eternal, you fight the icon of sin once more, after many, many years. Just like with its previous battles, with the far less powerful Doom guy, the icon of sin loses. Not only loses, but get absolutely fucking mutilated, with large chunks of flesh just being missing, and organs being exposed. Some people have argued that the Doomslayer at this point doesn't scale to the icon of sin because he didn't actually kill it himself. He had to use the crucible to actually kill it. Obviously, this is dumb. This is a dumb argument because he still greatly fucks it up, as you can clearly see in this video. The icon of sin was augmented with Maykr technology. Also at this point, the icon of sin is said to be the greatest demon in all of Hell's armies and is described as a champion of champions, meaning this incarnation of the icon of sin is not only stronger than its previous incarnations, but stronger than all of the Slayer's previous opponents, but still lost badly. If you also buy the Khan Maykr argument I presented earlier, the icon of sin also scales above it. The icon of sin was the Khan Maykr was trying to resurrect the icon of sin in order to use it as a weapon to destroy Earth. But the Khan Maykr herself says that they won't be able to control it if it were to break free, which it eventually did when the Slayer stabbed its heart. If you don't, oh well. Honestly, the Makers aren't that important when it comes to scaling Doom. In Doom Eternal, after defeating the icon of sin and saving Earth from another demonic invasion, you unlock Battle Mode. Battle Mode being a multiplayer mode where one player who plays the Doomslayer fights other players who play as demons like Revenants and Marauders. This mode actually has some lore to it. Going back to the scan where he warps the surroundings into an arena, it is detailed to us that Doomslayer is battling demon kind across the multiverse. Not only that, But the Doomslayer is so powerful at this point that these battles with Demonkind were causing the multiverse to implode inward on itself. I've seen people online argue that the Slayer wasn't causing the multiverse to implode on itself with its strength. Rather, it was being imploded by all the dimension hopping. This is not only wrong, but utterly baseless. Not only does the scan itself say that the Slayer's clashes with Hell are causing the multiverse to implode inward on itself, but the portals made by Vega are nowhere said to be harmful in any way like that. Not even the Hell portals, tears in the fabric of time and space, have a harmful effect on their surroundings. These gateways are also just incredibly tiny in comparison to the universe, let alone the entire multiverse. People have also argued that, but arguing this, you somehow argue that all the demons are multiversal as well. No, it doesn't. He is fighting the combined forces of Hell here, as in it is a group effort on Hell's behalf. Also makes sense that this was mostly attributed to the Doomslayer himself, as laid out painstakingly in my videos. He has a long history of scaling universal to multiversal threats, and this point between Base Doom Eternal, and this is like the turning point between Base Doom Eternal and the Ancient Gods, where the scaling peaks. Anyway, back to the multiverse. How big it is exactly? I could pussyfoot with two finite statements we have for it, but neither of them would be the total size of it, given they are just from the personal experiences of human characters. With that said, the multiverse is most consistently said to be infinite. In the Divinity Machine Codex entry, it was detailed that there is a timeline for every single possibility, and it is said that there are infinite possibilities. Obviously meaning that there are an infinite amount of timelines. These timelines are said to expand like fractal patterns. Fractals are essentially infinitely complex patterns that just go on and on and on. They just never end. They just keep going on forever. So not only there are infinite timelines, but each of these timelines are endlessly growing. Alongside this, the amount of dimensions that the multiverse consists of is described as countless, untold, and a myriad, all of which are various synonyms for infinite. People have argued against this by saying that there's no proof that these timelines physically exist. Not only is this just a weird assumption to inherently make, but we do have actual evidence for this. That being Doom 3. As said already, Doom 3 is canon and exists at its own timeline / dimension out in the multiverse. So even with this strange arbitrary standard in place, it wouldn't apply to Doom, as we know for a fact that Doom 3 physically exists. So the Doomslayer at this point is powerful enough to threaten a multiverse consisting of infinite universes and timelines. Going back to the countless dimensions statement, it could be argued that it actually is referring to individual timelines. It comes from the makers who has shown to be capable of traveling to other universes but not other timelines. As explained earlier, it is very well possible for timelines to contain multiple dimensions inside them, so this idea wouldn't be far-fetched. This would actually make the temporal energy converter much more powerful if you remember how it could mold timelines, but regardless, the Doomslayer at this point is very strong, but it is not his peak. Finally, I am talking about the Ancient Gods, the DLC that caused Doom power scaling to skyrocket, mostly with the Dark Lord himself appearing, Davoth. But before we talk about the Slayer's fight with Davoth, there's another character who Doomguy fought that we must go over in order to get the full picture of how powerful the Doomslayer is at this point. Khan Maykr. Khan Maykr by himself, not really that relevant in power scaling Doom. I've seen people try to scale him above the Khan Maykr because he was favored by the father, but that was for his intellect and had nothing to do with his actual strength. However, there is a detail that everyone seems to overlook when looking at the scene where the Doomslayer destroys the father's life sphere. After the Slayer destroys the life sphere, the energy within it envelops Khan Maykr, and afterwards he starts emitting the same yellow energy, absolutely brimming with the stuff. Life spheres contain the essence and power of an entity, meaning Khan Maykr absorbed the power of the father. This is further backed up later on, where before he fights the Slayer and succumbs to transfiguration, he is still brimming with this yellow energy. And in his boss battle, he demonstrates powers that only the father would have, or abilities that are universal or primevals. Most obviously, the father is said to have complete control over Urdak, and once you know it, Khan Maykr demonstrates the ability to control Urdak, actively manipulating the arena you fight in during his fight. He also creates spirits on occasion, and being able to manipulate essence, which encompasses the soul, seems to be an ability shared across all primevals, the kind of gods that the Father and Davoth are. So Khan Maykr absorbed the power of the Father, and despite that, he still got brutalized by the Doomslayer. So how powerful is the Father? The Father, long before the events of the games, fought and defeated Davoth, with their fight causing all of hell to shake. The Father ripped his life sphere out of his chest, taking away his power, and sealed Davoth's life sphere in the Tomb of Souls, where his and the Father's life spheres rest until the events of the Ancient Gods Part 1. Davoth, the first being, is the primeval that created the entirety of the Doom cosmology, creating the multiverse, Urdak, and Hell, which was known as Jekkad at the time. As I said before, the multiverse consists of infinite timelines and universes, meaning Davoth is multiverse level plus or 2-J. But that is just scratching the surface. Davoth also created Hell and is said to hold ultimate dominion over it, along with Hell itself being only an extension of his power, not even a fragment of it, as said by Hugo Martin during a live stream.
Here's a question from chat. This is Ben Langley. The question is this, because we were talking about Warhammer 40k, this is tying into that. The question is this: is Hell its own living entity, or is it an extension of the Dark Lord's power and will? And then as a side note, they said, I collect 40k as well, so that's really cool to see. Other than that, thanks for making such a great game.
It's actually a really interesting question, and it's going to be answered in DLC 2 in more depth, but I can say it is an absolute extension of the Dark Lord.
We confirm that this is true, as Davoth was able to completely reshape the realm of Jekkad just with his emotions, transforming it into the burning hellscape that is, well, hell. So, Davoth clearly scales to hell, and hell is no joke either. Hell has a very consistent lineup of evidence pointing towards it being infinite-sized. In the Gekkad Codex entry in Doom Eternal, the depths of hell are described as bottomless. In the Doom Eternal lore book, hell is also described as a dominion of endless darkness. In the master levels of Doom 2, hell is said to contain an endless sea of blood. In the official Doom 64 Recon Guide, hell is also said to contain endless void. This void will be referenced again in Doom Eternal, specifically in the story of the Sentinels, where it is described as eternal. Hell is also frequently said to contain an infinite amount of demons inside it. In TNT Evolution section of the Final Doom Manual, it is said that the demons of Hell have endless numbers. In the Codex entry for the Imps in Doom 2016, it is said that there is an endless amount of Imps. In the Doom Eternal Codex entry for the Lost Souls, just like the Imps, Lost Souls are said to be endless in number. In issue 96 of Nintendo Power, the one featuring Doom 64, it is said that there is no end to the amount of lost souls in Hell. Lastly, in the Japanese version of the Doom 2 manual, Hell is said to contain countless monsters. So hell is easily a realm of infinite size, but it is also not just one realm, one singular dimension. Rather, it contains more than one universe inside it, effectively making hell a multiverse. The newer games have established that hell itself is a living dimension that devours other universes. This is first detailed in Doom 2016, where after hell conquers civilization, it absorbs the dimension that civilization originated from. It is also presented in Doom Eternal lore, where it is said that the universe was being consumed by hell as the demons invaded Earth. We can even find evidence of hell being a multiverse as far back as Doom 64, with it being described as dimensions in the Doom 64 manual. Unfortunately, we aren't given an exact number of universes hell contains, but we can deduce that it is a lot, considering hell has been invading realms ever since it became hell, which was eons ago, and is still eating universes up until the end of the Ancient Gods Part 2. Lastly, and probably the most complicated part of hell, spatial dimensionality. Many people have argued many things for hell, particularly where it lands on the dimensionality scale, but most of them say that hell is either 5D or beyond dimensionality as a whole. So, complex multiverse level or low complex multiverse level or outerversal. There's quite a lot to say on this matter, and so here are my 2 cents on it. Personally speaking, I think both of these tiers work fine. I think 5D and outerversal hell are about equal in validity, and there are genuine cases to be made for both of them. With that said, this section of the video about hell's relation to spatial dimensions, it will be breaking up into 2 equal parts. The first one will be evidence that can be used to argue for either interpretation, because despite what certain people say, they mostly use the same evidence, and the other half will use evidence that supports a specific side. Hell is emphasized to be a dimension that is beyond time and space. Its page in the Art of Doom Eternal is described as being unlimited by the boundaries of time, space, and dimension. It also says that hell creates pathways of darkness that transcend time and space. In the book Doom 3 Maelstrom, or however the hell you pronounce that, higher up demons are described as evils transcended to space-time. Hell being beyond space-time is backed up with the fact that it is a force beyond human comprehension, with it being fundamentally impossible for humans to understand or comprehend hell in its entirety. This is actually really good for hell because humans in Doom have come to understand things like space-time. Even back in the classic Doom games, humans were able to determine the anomalies were tears in the fabric of time and space. This reigns true in the newer games, with humans being able to confirm that hell portals that the demons use to travel from hell, are tears in space-time. It can also be determined that hell is beyond the multiverse pretty easily. Hell is completely beyond the influence of the Makers, even the Khan Maykrs. The Makers being a race of entities that can see every single timeline of omniscient clarity and hold dominion over all dimensions. With all of this said, hell pretty clearly transcends the rest of the Doom cosmology. Now into the specific stuff, starting with 5D. Resources in hell are described as extra-dimensional. This is mainly referring to Argent energy, which is indigenous to hell, and the notion of Argent energy being higher dimensional is backed up with the story of the Sentinels, in which the Sentinels being able to transcend to a higher plateau of existence and gain control over all space-time of Argent energy. Hell is also said to be a superior realm to Urdak. As explained before, Urdak is a 4D realm, so naturally this would mean that Hell is 5D. Lastly, in Doom 3, Hell is described as a new dimensional plane. Now for the stuff specific to Outerversal Hell. Parts of Hell are described as formless on the Immortal Arc Demon page in the Art of Doom Eternal. Hell is also said to be part of Davoth's power, as said before, which is described as formless and ultimate in the same scan. Arch energy, again, something from Hell, is said to be beyond traditional science, and it requires an understanding unrestrained by the repressive thinking of dimensionally bound contemplation, as in, it takes understanding beyond dimensionality in order to fully grasp it. So, Khan Maykr at this point had the power of the Father, was able to defeat Davoth. Davoth is a god that created the entirety of the Doom cosmology, including Hell, which is an infinite-sized multiverse that is fifth-dimensional or outerversal, beyond dimensionality entirely. Some people have argued against Hell being outerversal by saying that dimension in the unlimited by time, space, or dimension statement just means universes. People have argued against Universal Hell by saying that dimension in the unlimited by time, space, or dimension statement just means universes. Well, this is actually that one exception I mentioned in my first video. How we can argue that this is an exception is the grammar. Essentially, the statement cannot be talking about dimension in the sense of universe, as the word is used as an uncountable noun, whereas universe or realm are countable. An uncountable noun is a noun that usually cannot be expressed plurally. It is not something you can quantify without adding another term. It also can't refer to dimensions such as height, width, or depth, since those are countable. The only definition of dimension that would work here is the concept of dimensions as a whole, given concepts are inherently uncountable. After saying that, however, I will say that 5D is a way more safe tier to put Hell at, even with this grammar argument in mind. The more conservative interpretation for this would be that Hell is simply beyond the previous established dimensional layers of Doom, rather than all dimensional bounds in general. Alongside that, Outerversal is an absolutely gross cancer fest of a tier. This argument was made by this fine lad, Donatian from Wiki. Sorry, I forgot your name wrong. So shoutouts for this pretty solid argument. There are also a few other debunks I want to address before getting back into the scaling. I probably said it already, but when it comes to Doom, Hell is likely the part that receives the most quote-unquote debunks. I can't go over all of them here, so I'll just go over the main ones that I see. A number of people have argued that Hell only exists outside of space-time. It isn't actually transcendent to it. I've already demonstrated that Hell is a realm that is genuinely beyond the rest of the cosmology, so this wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Also ignoring the specific wording, particularly the use of transcend, which means to rise above or go beyond the limits of something. There is also this other argument that I've seen floating around, which actually originates from Versus Battles Wiki. There, some people have argued that unlimited by the boundaries of time, space, or dimension they try to say that statement is only saying that Hell is infinite spatially and temporally. This argument particularly gets on my nerves, so I'm gonna rip it a new asshole here. For one, as demonstrated in these videos, being infinite-sized isn't something unique to Hell. pretty much every single universe in the idverse is infinite-sized. These statements saying that hell is beyond space-time, among all the other statements for hell, are there to essentially emphasize that hell is different from the rest of the realms in existence. So it would inherently mean something else. Like, it would be weird as shit for the verse to be treating hell, especially because it is infinite, when literally every other dimension in Doom is infinite. Hell is also said to be timeless, to be a timeless realm, as in there is no time in it whatsoever. So it couldn't be infinitely temporal. Infinite temporally either. So overall, this argument doesn't hold up at all. From my research into the source of this argument was only a passing observation made by Ultima Reality when he was asked to look at a cosmology thread for Doom. To my knowledge, Ultima isn't knowledgeable in Doom, and an undeniable fact, the people on Versus Battles Wiki don't seem to know how to properly argue for Doom, which would explain a lot of the ignorance behind this argument. Back to the power scaling. Despite all of his power, the Doomslayer brutalized this empowered Khan Maykr. He would have killed him too, but the father teleported him away. This is not the peak of the Slayer, however. At the end of the Ancient Gods Part 2, you actually fight Davoth himself, the Dark Lord. Amazingly, not only did the Doomslayer kill Davoth, but he came out of this confrontation without so much as a scratch on him. This Davoth is actually much stronger than he was back when he made all of existence, thanks to the 2 amps he was receiving during his time removed from the physical realm. The first one being that, as hell conquered other dimensions, Davoth absorbed the power of the gods that ruled over those dimensions. His strength growing far beyond what he originally had. Alongside that, as said already, hell is part of Davoth's power, so its power should also be his. Hell's strength grows with the more pain and suffering it inflicts, and since it has been conquering worlds and torturing people for literal eons, it should be far stronger than when it was originally turned into hell, when it became a realm transcendent to the multiverse. So Davoth should be much, much stronger than he was before, with his multiversal to potentially universal power. Despite that, the Doomslayer fodderized him. One last thing to note before I get to the debunks is that Davoth will also scale above the demonic crucible. Naturally, as the primeval of hell, he is stronger than anything in hell, which would include the demonic crucible, a weapon that is said to be capable of corrupting all realms. I think in Doom Eternal, by a talking tree that gives us some lore. So, more evidence to support that he is not only multiversal plus, but decently high into it. Many people have claimed that the Doomslayer shouldn't scale to Davoth's power, as Davoth supposedly wasn't at full power during their fight, according to them. This is a misconception, and I'm going to debunk it here. Mostly, this is coming from the people that are just making shit up of it, but there are 2 arguments that hold some level of truth to them. He lost his power years ago, and the father, quote-unquote, stole his power. Technically, it is true that Davoth lost his power after he lost to the father. However, the reason why he lost it in the first place was because he lost his physical form. The power of a primeval stems from them having a physical body, and if they do, they have their full power. When the father tore Davoth's life sphere from his body, he was removed from the physical realm, which greatly reduced his power, thus making him only able to communicate with those in the physical realm, quote-unquote, reduced to whispers, as the Codex puts it. The Tainted Prophecy hammers this idea in, saying that even without a physical form, the Dark Lord still has a powerful influence. Not only is this represented in the Codex, this is even emphasized by the Father, who is a primeval himself. Without a physical form, he is merely a presence that lacks control of the physical realm, like Urdak. Despite having indefinite access and understanding of it and its systems, he has no recollection of himself, and believes that his essence from the sphere, his life sphere, would return to his full faculties, his full power. On top of this, the Doomslayer himself is an example that clearly shows that there is a correlation between a primeval's essence and power. The Doomslayer gained a boost in power after going through the Divinity Machine, which infused him with a shard of Davoth's essence, as you already know. Obviously, the Slayer brings Davoth back, giving him his physical form before murdering him, so he would have killed a full-power Davoth. To say otherwise would be ignoring the very reason why he lost his power. It doesn't even make sense to say that these two things are separate, since it is pretty clear that one happened because of the other. Enough for the other misconception. I've seen people across many websites, from YouTube to the ghastly fuckhole that is Versus Wiki, claim that the Father stole Davoth's power. This is a misconception that comes from these quotes. I already explained how Davoth quote-unquote fell, but for the ascend part, this just means that the Father took his place as the strongest being in creation, replacing him as the ruler of existence. Davoth himself did say that he quote-unquote stole his name, after all. As for the stole my power bit, we know that Davoth isn't being literal here when he says this, despite what people would want you to think. In the Book of Seraphs, we see his fall described out in detail, when nowhere is it said that the Father absorbed his power, or in any source for that matter. All we see is that the Father ripped Davoth's life sphere out of him and sealed it in the Tomb of Souls. When Davoth says that he stole his power, he's just saying that he separated it from him, thus he made it to where he can't use it. There is even physical proof that the Father didn't absorb Davoth's power, the life spheres themselves. Look at them. Clearly you can see that their essences are very different in color. Davoth's being a purplish red, while the Father was a bright yellow/gold color to it. If the Father absorbed Davoth's power, a part of his essence, then we would be able to see different colored essence in the sphere. It would stick out like a sore-ass thumb, and we don't even see it when Doomguy breaks it open and all its energies spill out. Even if we still, for some reason, assume that the Father absorbed his power, regardless of what he said, as said before, Khan Maykr absorbed the Father's power, and the Slayer mutilated his ass anyway. The Father didn't steal Davoth's power for his own, and we should know that the Davoth the Slayer fight should be at full power, if not even above his full power back when he originally made everything in corrupted hell. Wouldn't even make sense for him to not be at full power, as Davoth, after his resurrection, was treated as a serious threat to all of existence in the Ancient Gods Part 2. It was also said that even if he was ever reincarnated, only another primeval or something even more powerful could defeat him. A primeval, or something even greater, is required to kill him, and primevals are gods amongst gods that are so powerful that only one of them can exist in a realm safely. Too long didn't read, when a primeval has their physical body, they are at full power, and the notion the Father absorbed his power is a myth that is not only baseless, but is contradicted by the games themselves. Even if we accept that, Doomguy still scales the Dale's power, given he defeated Samur, who, again, absorbed the Father's power. I've seen people across many websites, from YouTube to the ghastly fuckhole that is Versus Wiki, claim that the Father stole Davoth's power. This is a misconception that comes from these quotes. I already explained how Davoth quote unquote fell, but I've seen people across many websites, from YouTube to the ghastly fuckhole that is Versus Battles Wiki, claim that the father stole Davoth's power. This is a myth. Well, that is it for this series. Here's a recap of the skilling I presented in my videos. I had fun making this, honestly. Well, nice to once again dig my talents into this verse, and I think my arguments for it hold up. As for our next video, I'll be going over the various abilities of Pennywise the Clown, but for the videos after that, I'm going to do something special. I'll be letting you guys select a video idea for me in my community tab. So it'll be a voting poll where you can select one of three things. One, Doomguy's weapons, power-ups, and other equipment, because those can actually make him much more powerful. The speed of the Doomslayer across his eras. Unlike this series, that will be a singular video. The various abilities of the Doomslayer. While I don't think he really has any true hacks, he still has a number of abilities that can help him in a battle. If you wish to see more of my content for some reason, feel free to either watch some of my other videos or go to the fictional indexing wiki where you can see my profiles. You can see the profiles I've made for going over verses from Doom to Gewsbumpz to Gravity Falls and even SCP. As of late, I've been working on creepypasta characters, so if you're interested, you know where to look. See you all later, you bunch of fucking fart sniffers.